I'm Taraji P. Henson, and for years, people of color have been suffering in silence about their mental health.
Our children are dying from suicide. These are things that they are dealing with.
This show is here to break the silence. We'll be joined by celebrity friends, experts, and real people, all sharing their stories and tools to help us all heal.
I see you, baby. On the season premiere of Peace of Mind with Taraji.
I was raped.
Oof. Gabrielle Union opens up about her struggle with PTSD.
The terror that exists to this day in my body, in my spirit, in my soul.
That's PTSD.
We do associate PTSD with soldiers. We forget that we are surviving wars in our neighborhoods every day.
He had me in a chokehold. I felt like I was gonna die that night. I believe that night God gave me a second chance.
We're embarrassed to say we need help for people of color, especially in the Black community, but we gonna heal, damn it. Well, 2020 has been a year. Anxiety, depression from this pandemic, from the election.
Yeah.
That was a doozy.
Yeah.
It's been a lot. And I know it's affecting my own peace of mind. It's exactly why we wanted to do this show.
This will be a safe space to be open and talk about what's going on and what we're going through.
And this girl right here, Tracy, this has been my best friend since the 7th grade. My ride or die since we were 12 years old. If you would have told me when we were 12 that we were going to host a show together, a show on mental health, no less. Now that I would not have believed. And today's first show is about PTSD because that's what my father had from serving in Vietnam. My dad's name is Boris Lawrence Henson. Rest in peace, Daddy. And his struggles are what made me start the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, with Tracy at the helm to help.
Yes.
You see, my father had what most people think of when we speak of PTSD, effects from the war. But the two women here today, they suffer from it too. Mm-hmm. And they never served in the military. Mm-hmm. Why is it always us girls?
Yeah.
My girl, Gabrielle Union, her battle with mental health issues is a daily struggle. It was a no-brainer for her to be our first guest. From the outside looking in, she's a TV and movie superstar. Mm-hmm. And she's in a loving relationship with an NBA All-Star, Dwayne Wade. But she's been very vocal about her post-traumatic stress disorder, which she began to experience after a horrifying rape at gunpoint when she was only 19 years old.
Oh, yeah. She's here.
She's here. Gabby's here. I'll be right back.
I will be right here.
Oh, my beautiful friend. So much. Did you ever meet my best friend, Tracy?
Maybe kind of.
How are you, Mama?
This is gorgeous.
I love you so
you.
much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This woman just doesn't age. Can we just get that out of the way?
Something to drink, boo? Cheese and crackers, some
some wine. She's trying to behave.
Do I mix my mental health with
my
the booze, which is what I really do? But
Who does it?
I wasn't sure what we were on to do.
We just want you to be comfortable. We're creating a safe place because, we have trauma.
Ain't that the truth?
Mm-hmm. You said that 2020 has been triggering to your PTSD. How are you holding up, Gab?
I thought quarantining was right up my alley. I love silence. I love hunkering down at home, but you add in our president. He inspired so much racism and white supremacy and hatred and evil that we have been in the midst of an onslaught, a daily barrage of the brutalization of Black and brown bodies that we're just taking in every day, all day.
Just turning the news on. Once you turn it off, your body goes through something. Yeah. That's PTSD.
That's PTSD. It's just such a trigger. It is not one size fits all. There is no look. I think the first time I started talking about it was the first time I had a cover. And, interviews, and they ask you stupid questions. And they had asked me who was a better kisser, Will Smith or like Jamie Foxx or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, I was raped.
Oof, baby.
Like, you want to get a different line of questioning? Because we could actually talk about something that could save somebody's life or create community. Yes. Or I can talk about some dudes who I was paid to kiss.
I've known you for years, and I never knew until you wrote your book about the rape. It just makes you go, you never know what people are dealing with.
For whatever reason, every time I talk about being a rape survivor, people are like, oh, and then they forget we are so conditioned that we know what someone looks like who has suffered from PTSD. We believe we know what rape victims look like. And it's not me. I've been going to therapy since I was 19. I started like a week after I was raped and at the store that I worked at during my rape. I floated over my body. I hovered over my body. And it wasn't until dude asked me to hand him the gun that I came back into myself. Tried to kill him. That's what it feels like throughout a lot of this, is that I'm just like floating. I'm like, ooh, girl, bob and weave. And like, you know, but my other self that's just sort of floating and watching it all is like, ooh, this is crazy. But as I'm experiencing it, it's just like, nothing can harm me if I'm not in my body.
What gave you the power to say, I'm going to go get some help?
I think because it had been suggested that night at the hospital when I was getting my rape kit, that I was going to need a lot of stuff. The immediate thing was, you know, physical help, you know, from a medical doctor. But part of that, you know, exit interview, if you will, before they, you know, release you, she's going to need, you know, I'm being the nurse talking to my parents, she's going to need, you know, therapy and mental health help that you all are not going to be equipped to give her. They felt helpless as well. And we all started coping with it in different ways. So I started therapy. Probably wasn't even a week, maybe 5 days after my rape. Still, you know, face swollen, eyes swollen shut. And I was like, let me tell you what happened when I was 8. Being able to have the language to know what was happening to me, to define the terror that exists to this day in my body, in my spirit, in my soul, to be able to say, oh, that's post-traumatic stress syndrome. I need it.
You need it.
I need it.
Yeah. What happens when you get triggered?
Usually my right arm starts to feel like it's going numb. And it just feels like a full body heart attack. The way you would imagine a heart attack, but in your knees, in your legs, in your arms, in your chest, in your eyeballs. Trauma can take so many forms.
And I think there's a misconception when we say PTSD. People don't understand that it comes in different forms. It's not just from being in the service.
Because we do associate PTSD with soldiers. We forget that we are surviving wars in our neighborhoods every day. Like when Malcolm X talked about not sitting with his back, you know, to the door.
Yeah.
And that's how I move through the world. There are times where I realize, until someone says something or I see something on TV or whatever, I'm scrolling and I'll be like, and I realize I've been holding my breath. And are we allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm waiting for the and whatever that
another shoe to drop.
Because it's gonna. I've been living that way since I was 19. I try not to go anywhere where there is money that exchanges hands after dark. When you have danced with the devil up close, when you have slow dragged with the devil,
good Lord,
you know what people are capable of.
Yeah.
You know what the world is capable of. How are you not always in fear of it happening?
I suffered with anxiety and depression since I was 13 years old. I didn't have the
knowledge or the knowledge
or what the hell is this thing?
I made fun of her. I told her to get over it.
Yeah, she used to.
I was like, girl, what you doing?
Yeah.
We did Dream Girls in Hong Kong. And some producer took a big stab
Look
at
us.
us.
Hong Kong.
Actually really good.
Yeah.
But we went and I just remember her having pills. And I was like, girl, what you doing? And she was like, I really have anxiety. I laughed at her. I made fun of her.
Yeah.
I mean, but she didn't even get offended because that's what we did.
Yeah.
And that's cruel.
And that was a way for us to make light of it.
And
not have
deal.
to
It's heavy.
figure it out.
But the crazy thing about it is I'm making fun of her. Like, look at you the whole time. I'm biting my nails down to the quick. I used to bite my nails until they bled. And I did not realize that I was suffering until years later. I got to LA and I remember talking to a friend and I was like, wow, I don't bite my nails anymore. And they were like, because you're healing. And I was like,
Hurt people.
me traumatizing you while I'm trauma.
Just trauma bonding.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Just wow.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you first started dating Dwayne, did you bring up your PTSD? How was the conversation?
No, he was aware of it. As a fan, he was
I'm the only one.
I don't know how else to say that. I'm like, he'd read articles. So he was aware of it. He was aware of it.
He knew what he was getting into.
But I think it has been hard during the quarantine because we are in the same space. I have not been home in any kind of consistent way since I have been an adult. So just getting to know my husband, which sounds crazy, I was like, every day you're gonna be here. Okay, I guess this is healthy, but
Okay.
I just feel a little bit more naked in my
Exposed, I was gonna say
exposed.
exposed,
That's the
yeah.
word. Because I'm just on Zoom with therapists, and I can hear that household, and then the doors open, and they're all like, there's not enough space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that kind of worries me sometimes. When people are like, you got to keep a mystery about yourself. Don't tell them everything. I'm like, well, in the pandemic,
Right. What can you do?
You got the whole thing. So you have to find out, do you love me?
Right.
For all of the baggage, it's like a Toomey store. Like, there's so much baggage. You get worried that maybe you have revealed too much and you're going to scare them away.
Yeah.
Because damaged women aren't supposed to be lovable.
Careful with yourself.
Everybody's damaged. I don't care who you are. Everybody. Everybody has some sort of trauma. Perfection is the perfect lie.
You do it every week. You see your therapist. And do you think that it's hard for people to find a therapist these days?
It can be because
they know where to look.
Because a lot of people lost their jobs and lost insurance with those jobs. So therapy, at times it can be expensive. So just finding someone that you are compatible with, it's like dating.
Yep.
You date again. There's a whole reference list of Black female therapists in Los Angeles and for every major city.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you
that.
think it's important that therapist would be Black.
For me, yes, because I don't want to waste any part of my hour.
Say it.
Sometimes that's 55 minutes. Explaining Blackness.
My history.
I need you to understand inherently
Yeah.
and intimately what I'm talking about.
Now, what we know about you, Gab, is that you have a big family. You've been
Yes.
talking about them. And I wonder what hopes you might have for your girls.
I want them to be at peace.
Yeah.
And I want them to know and feel and give love. And so we had to figure out how to create that in our extended family home. Like, Zaya's peace is non-negotiable. As Zaya gathered more language, she was able to tell us about her identity. She was able to tell us about her sexuality. She was able to tell us, I'm trans. And she says, I've come out a few times. And she was like, well, I came out to my teacher in the 3rd grade. And then when you guys posted that picture of me in Chicago at my birthday party, and it's just Zaya standing next to her cake. And that picture was dissected on certain Black blogs. And the comments were guessing as to who Zaya was and why and da-da-da-da-da. She said, I felt like I was outed and I was just standing next to my cake. And then, she spoke of coming out again when she was like, I'm trans. I'm demi, sexual. Like I'm not bound by, gender in terms of, attraction or whatever. When Zaya asked for a demi flag, there's all different kinds of flags.
Yeah.
She asked for a demisexual flag for her birthday. And Dee was like, do you know what that is? I'm like, no. And so we're like,
figure it out.
yeah, no problem. We're right on that.
Run it through the thing.
Right. And then so we were like, okay, so you're demi, so it's just a personality of the person. I was like, okay, yeah, that's great. And he goes, so are you still trans? And so I was like, identity is not the same as sexuality, is not the same as gender expression. And I was like,
Okay. I got it. Woo.
But we only know what we know, and you
Yeah.
have to be open to
learn.
to embrace that we don't know.
No. That part. When I was growing up, my little brother came out to me because he felt safe. And I just remember feeling so honored because what if we weren't? Like, life could have been very different for him. I really have a problem with this idea of coming out. That bothers me because that creates trauma, unnecessary anxiety. It creates PTSD. I don't have to come out and say I'm heterosexual. Why is it that they have to make this big presentation about something so personal to them? That bothers me. Having said that, in our community, it is very difficult because on top of the stigmas around mental health, then you have the stigmas around sexuality. Now we're dealing with social media. We have people who are very much in the spotlight. And now this baby is charged with all of this negativity. I just want to commend you on how you guys handled it.
Yes.
And Dwayne Wade, brother, I love you. Because what you did, and because we need that. Because our children are dying from suicide.
Yes, yes.
And these are things that they are dealing with. And so I'm getting emotional because this is very real for me. Just thank you, because that imagery was very needed.
Yeah.
So needed. And you guys speaking up, just thank you. So with 2020 being so hard, what makes you smile or even look forward to the future?
Every time Zaya does a TikTok dance,
You're happy.
she just started cheer, so I'm like, oh, you bet you better bring it.
Well, Gabby, I'm your sister girl forever. I'm just proud of everything that you're doing. I've learned a lot from you. I don't think you know that, but I watch you and I learn a lot.
I hear from you more than I hear from my mother. And you just let me feel, oof, well, there went that voice. You let me be myself. Every morning, I'm like, we have our like exchange our memes and whatever. And it just is like a minute of like, I see you.
Yeah.
And I don't always feel very seen.
You are a sister in the struggle, and I just thank you so much. And we gonna heal. We gonna heal.
Yeah.
We gonna heal, damn it.
Baby. It's gonna happen.
While Gabrielle has been dealing with her trauma for a while, it's pretty new for this young woman who realized she was suffering from PTSD after enduring trauma from her relationship. Welcome, Bree.
Thank you.
We are so happy to have you here with us.
Thank you. I'm excited. I can't believe I'm here.
Now talk to us a little bit about PTSD and where it stems from in your experience.
For me, my experience with PTSD is a few years back, I got involved in a relationship that resulted in domestic violence.
Probably painful still to this day to talk about, but what actually went on in the relationship to cause you to have PTSD?
I moved out here alone in LA, came out here to intern. Basically, the first sort of thing that happened, he manipulated me into thinking that my friends and family didn't really care about me. Aside from that, anytime there was like an issue in his eyes, whether that be with what I wore or hanging out with my friends, he didn't really like certain groups of my friends. That all was prior to the physical abuse. And the final incident for me, the last straw, was I felt like I was gonna die that night. And within a split second, and that's where my faith has kicked into play a lot. Because I believe that night God gave me a second chance. He had me in a chokehold, thank you. And I remember not being able to breathe, and I was trying to reach up and, tell him, hey, you're really hurting me, I can't breathe. And within that split second, the police knocked on the door and he jumped off me immediately and told me to go answer the door. But even after, when the cops came, I still stood by his side. I was still hopeful in my heart of hearts that this man who I had seen as my everything, if I showed him I was loyal to him and I'm gonna stand by you no matter what, that it would work out in my favor.
When you realized that you were having, symptoms of PTSD, what were some of those symptoms?
One, the nightmares. Like, I would wake up in the middle of the night, scared, out of breath. My behaviors had changed completely. I was a straight A student all growing up. Like, I was, in the community. I mentor young girls, and I was flunking out of all my classes. I couldn't show up for myself. I was not performing at work. I failed out of school, Those, and then as well as I'm an only child, so I've been alone my entire life. I love my peace, I love my space, but this was the only time I felt like I needed to be around people. So those were my first signs and triggers for me.
How did you know this terminology even? How did you know it was PTSD?
I didn't know until when I was flunking out and I had to go through exit counseling with my school. They had asked, what had been going on. And I opened up to my counselor, and she was like, you should go to therapy. You should really sit down with the therapist, and that's when I started therapy.
And had you ever heard of PTSD before you were diagnosed?
Yeah, I had heard about it more so in the military, sort of, but I never heard about it in the sense of somebody who was just dealing with something and triggers and, red flags and gaslighting. I didn't know about any of that.
So having said that, what would you like people to know about PTSD?
You got to be willing to face yourself in the mirror and do the work. And I took a different route. I tried drinking, over drinking, and kind of masking what I was feeling. But I wasn't afraid in that moment to still be like, I'm broken.
Yeah.
Like there is some brokenness here and I need to heal.
And what tools do you use to sort of stay out of that water and get into a positive state of mind?
I do meditation every morning. I do a guided meditation as well. And then outside of that, I cook. So I'm from the South after a dance. Yeah. I dance. Every day, I'm like, do your dance, it's your chance. I used to say that to myself all the time because it's that really helps me because you can't help but just laugh at yourself, you know? Even sometimes when I'm in my little moods, I start dancing and I'm like, look at you, okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is.
You've heard Gabrielle Union's story. How do you identify with her story at all?
Yeah, I think she gave me a lot of peace even going into this, hearing her. Because, for one, the isolation thing, she talks about how she likes to, there would be times where she just needs to be away. I really related to that part of her story, and it made me feel more at peace even coming into her to just be transparent and open. Because I think, I was in pageants and theater and different things like that. But in my household, image was everything, You have to talk a certain way and present yourself a certain way. Yeah. And this was against my image. So she gave me a lot of peace even coming into this. It's okay. You're not, this doesn't make who you are, you know?
And so you work as a mentor to young girls now. What would you like to say to them or to others who are currently in the thick of it?
I would like to say never forget what God's promise is for your life. Fight through to get to your purpose. Whatever God has revealed to you, what his promise is for your life, hold on to that. That doesn't change just because you go through things. And I'm thankful even in the sense that I went through that because I wouldn't be the woman I am. It grew me up in a lot of ways, but I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't went through that. I wouldn't have known about mental health and all these different things.
Right.
And it probably focused you in another way, too.
Oh, absolutely. Now I just don't play games. I'm not playing no sort of games.
You go and dance your dance,
and
do your guided meditation. You got your tools to work with. You're good.
I'm good.
Good for you.
Bree, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Very brave.
Very brave.
Thank you.
And thank you for understanding your purpose. Today you set somebody free.
Yes.
You know that, like Gabrielle did you. Trust me, baby, you set somebody free.
Yes.
And I just thank you.
Thank you,
sweetheart.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so much.
And keep dancing like nobody's watching. We still have so much more to discuss when it comes to PTSD.
Yeah.
Your sense of trauma can be totally different from what you think is a traumatic event.
I watched my mom get robbed twice, and I remember my mother pulling plugs of hair. That's how hard he was pulling her hair. Trauma. Next week on Peace of Mind with Taraji.
I wanted to die. Logan was the reason why I made that decision. I just felt like he deserved better.